Live from Lagos, Nigeria, this is News Central. I'm Felicity Ezewike. The top stories tonight. Amnesty International warns mass kidnappings in schools may stunt academic progress as U.S. partners Nigeria on intelligence sharing. UK government rejects federal government request to transfer Ike Ekweremadu to serve remainder of his prison term in Nigeria. 7th EU-AU summit opens in Luanda as European and African leaders meet amid mounting threats to regional stability. And in business, NNPCL declares profit of 5.4 trillion naira, marking one of its strongest performances since transition into limited liability company.
And in sport, 2 players from the Premier League champions Lagos Legends make final shortlists for the men's team ahead of the 2027 FIBA World Cup qualifiers.
Welcome. Tonight begins now. We'll begin with a continuation of our coverage of the security situation across the country. Amnesty International Nigeria has warned that the wave of mass kidnappings targeting schools could severely derail educational progress across northern Nigeria. Country Director Issa Sanusi said the psychological impact of abductions and even the fear of such attacks will discourage countless children from attending school. Sanusi noted that rising insecurity is pushing parents to rethink the safety of sending their children to school as incidents of school kidnappings continue to escalate. He added that families in rural communities already struggle to keep their children in school due to economic pressures, and the current security challenges will worsen the situation. In the meantime, the recent spate of kidnappings of children in Nigeria has reached alarming levels, with over 300 children, students, and 12 teachers abducted from St. Mary's Catholic School in Niger State alone. This mass abduction is just one in a series of escalating attacks on educational institutions in the country, causing widespread fear and forcing many secondary schools in the northern region to close temporarily. Authorities are intensifying search and rescue efforts, but the lingering threat continues to disrupt schooling and devastate communities longing for peace and stability. We can also tell you that the United States government has affirmed its readiness to deepen security cooperation with Nigeria. This will include the provision of enhanced intelligence support, defense equipment, and articles to reinforce ongoing operations against terrorists and violent extremist groups in the country. This follows discussions and engagements held last week between a high-level Nigerian delegation and U.S. officials aimed at strengthening security partnerships between the two countries and opening new avenues for cooperation. The delegation, led by the National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu, had met with senior officials across the U.S. Congress, the White House Faith Office, the State Department, the National Security Council, and the Department of War. The Plateau State Commissioner for Education says that the closure of unitary schools in the state will not affect the academic calendar of students for the 2025-2026 academic session. The commissioner, in a press briefing in Jos, says that preventing a crisis is way better than looking for solutions after any tragedy. She adds that the state took preventive measures by shutting down schools for the safety of both students and staff. News Center's Chizoba Anyowe in Jos, the Plateau State capital, north-central Nigeria, tells us more.
Compliance to the directive on the total closure of all schools in Plateau State has been welcomed with mixed feelings. At the Federal Government College, Bauchi Road in Jos, the Plateau State capital, News Central was told off camera that the students vacated the school since Saturday following government directive the previous day. Just like other schools visited, FGC Jos is now a shadow of itself as neither the students nor the staff was seen within the premises, except for some ununiformed security men. Parents are, however, worried about the effects of these developments on their children and wards.
Soldiers are doing the works of police. Police is virtually not existent. They've called for state police. If the governors could close down schools, they should have some rights to even organize local police on their own.
We don't really know that at the end of the day, maybe if they are back to their respective schools, they have to start afresh or give them some time to refresh themselves, because there is already a gap that certainly some students, when they come back, they will not meet up again.
For me, I commend Plateau State government, even though it's a painful decision, but they had to take it. It's a proactive measure. It's better you have your kids at home than to hear stories, and you never know where they will strike next.
Efforts to get further details from the school authority, including when academic activities will resume, was not successful, as none of the staff was available to speak to our team. In a swift response, the Plateau State Commissioner for Education, Kachalom Gang, said the sudden closure of schools will not affect the 2025-2026 academic calendar.
As they say, prevention is better than cure. We took the action to prevent the children and to also help parents not to panic. I think on our own calendar, schools were to close in the next 2 or 3 weeks. They have finished their lectures. What was left was a week of revision and a week of examination. And then the schools will close. So I believe the action that we have taken will not affect the calendar that much. The second term resumes middle of January. And we are hoping that as they resume, they can do their examination. As
concerned citizens of Nigeria, majorly parents, continue to express their concerns on this development, one would hope that sooner than later, all architecture will be put in place to ensure the safety of these children, even when they go back to school. In Plateau State, for News Central, Chizoba Anyomi.
Many thanks, Chizoba. Let's now get more update from our correspondent, Benadekede Amono Balagbogo, who had earlier in the day visited some of the schools under lock and key. After that, we will get some perspective from the executive director of Enough is Enough, Yemi Adamolekun, as well as economist Professor Yomi Fawehimi. Thank you all for being here tonight. Bernard, I'll start with you. You visited Federal Government College Ilorin and Federal Government Girls College, I believe, or Bomosho, today. Can you take us through your experience at these two venues? Okay, let's go to Mono and just ask, which of the schools did you visit? Share your experience at these schools.
Hello, good evening, Felicity. Earlier today, I was at the Federal Girls College, Government Girls College in Kaba, Kogi State, which is in Kogi West Senatorial District. Well, our school today was closed. We were told that the students were told to go home on Saturday, following the orders from the federal government to close down the school. So parents had come in last week to actually pick their words. So when we got to the school today, there were no students available. All we saw were teachers who came into the administrative block to go about their normal duties. The principal was not on seat. I spoke with the vice principal, who told me that, as I can see for myself, there's practically no activity going on. And I got to speak with some of the teachers who refused to be recorded on camera. They told me that there is a possibility they will likely use continuous assessments to judge the students for this particular first term of the session. And I was trying to press if they had an idea about when the schools will resume. They all pointed to 2026, that the possibility of those girls coming back to school this year. They don't think it will be possible, probably next year. So they said they will continue to come to work to ensure that things are in order while they wait for further developments from the federal government. But I must tell you, Felicity, security operatives, the local vigilantes were stationed at the gate of the school. when I was at that particular place earlier today. Also, I spoke with the chief security officer, who assured that they are doing all they can to ensure that there is no attack.
Okay. Bernard, I think we have Bernard now. Chizoba told us in our report that the closure would not affect the 2025-2026 academic session. What information are you getting on the ground in Ogbomoso, where you went earlier today?
In Ilorin, the Kwara State capital. So we first visited Federal Government College in Ilorin here, which is about 40-50 minutes away from the city center. That school was completely shut down. There was no academic activity ongoing. The students had all vacated, like what you saw in Plateau State, and so had the staff. They were just skeletal functions by some of the staff, but if you have no business there, you will not be granted access into the school, and we equally were not granted access into that particular facility. We were told by the chief security officer that everything is going on well. There was a police van just stationed outside of the school, and he explained to us that all the students had to be evacuated from the school based on the information they received. And it was from there we went on to Ogbomoso, Federal Government College Ogbomoso in Oyo State, where coincidentally academic activities were ongoing in that particular school. Although, again, we were not granted access into the school to record or to film, but we got a call from the chief security officer of that particular school stating that everything was going on well, the school was peaceful, students and the staff were very well secure, and all academic activities were ongoing in that particular school. But again, we were not granted access into the school. And again, it shows the concern, the level of concern for the students and the staff of this school, because of what has been happening, the recent space of insecurity across several schools, particularly unity schools across the country. So while one school was shut, another one had its doors open to academic activities. But then finally, also one of the Federal Government College in Kwara State, that's the one in Omuaron. We couldn't get there, but we did get information that that particular school equally was shut. So the two government colleges in Kwara State under lock and key, but the one in Ogbomoso, Oyo State, was open for activities.
All right, I'll come back to you in a bit, Bernard. Mona, do stay on the line. We will be back with you in a bit after this break. Thank you for staying with us. Bernard and Mona, will have to let you go now so we can have our guests share their thoughts as well. Thank you for your coverage. Do stay safe. Let's now turn to our guest, Yemi Adamolekun, Professor Yomi Fawehimi. We'll start with Yomi and just go straight and ask, education is the right of the child. But right now, that right is being rolled back due to insecurity. Tell us a bit about the impact of that.
I mean, a very important question. The right to education is guaranteed by our Nigerian Constitution. Before now, the section that deals with it was considered not to be justiciable, but in a decided case by Justice Sowo, he argued that because some of the fact that some of aspects of those rights have been codified into other laws like UBEC Act and all of that, that they are now justiciable. And so as a result of that, anything that makes a child not to go to school or not to get education, remember, the right is a right to education, not necessarily a right to schooling. And so because of the fact that we have attacks on schools, it may be pragmatic at this point for the government to ensure children are not exposed in school. But that does not still derogate from the right. The government should still provide education even though schools have been shut down. Because if we don't do that, particularly because of the part of Nigeria where this has happened, it's going to be worse for us. That's a part of Nigeria that has the highest percentage of children that are out of school in terms of number and percentages. Therefore, if you give them incentive not to come to school by closing down their schools, many of them will not return even when you open the schools. Some of the girls will be exposed. Some of them may be married or they'll even get pregnant. Some of the boys will start to follow their parents to the farm and to do business, and some of them may never come back. So those are the implications of the shutdown. Like I said, it may be pragmatic to shut down the school, but doesn't derogate from the responsibility to ensure the right to education. So governments in those states that have shut down those schools should immediately ensure education happens even at home.
I'm going.
What is available.
Yemi, I'm going to come back to you and ask how you propose that education continues, even though the students are not in school, considering that that location we have poor internet penetration, and some of these people, students, don't have that much access. Just think about that. Why I ask Yemi to talk to us, given your years of advocacy. How did such a matter this big just fall on us all of a sudden? Is it poor planning and the failure of early warning systems to blame?
I didn't understand that. What matter suddenly fell on us?
These students staying at home, going home, there is no planning. I mean, Professor Yomi was saying we should continue the education at home, but we don't have that infrastructure, do we?
We don't. And I think fundamentally, so you can have a constitution. I mean, the constitution guarantees us the right to life. Section 14, I believe, says the primary purpose of government shall be the security and welfare of the people. So the fact that it's codified has to meet the willingness to honor your oath of office, which is to provide education, provide security, provide welfare. And so if you have a government, if that is not where they're starting from in terms of their planning and how they see governance, then we would not have the infrastructure. It will not be structured. And when things happen, we will respond poorly, which is why even at the height of the Boko Haram insurgency in the north, the people that were providing education, and I like the way Yomi puts it, it's not a right to be in a physical building. But people that were ensuring that children were being taught under trees or in small communities or in mosques and churches, we're not government. We're non-profit organizations who, understanding the rights of a child to education and understanding the importance of it, found ways to do that despite and in spite of government's unwillingness, incompetence, pick one, that we have. So it's not a suddenly. What's going on in the north is not new. The fact that, I mean, as long as we haven't curbed terrorism in this country, as long as we continue to negotiate with terrorists and bandits, and pat them on the head, pay them, absorb them into our military or into our army. As long as that's the way we engage terrorism, none of this should be surprising at all. At all.
All right, Yomi, what would you propose? We don't have internet penetration. Gathering is a concern because you don't know when these people will strike. This was supposed to be an exam preparation period for the students and pupils. Now they don't have that.
I mean, every time I try to talk about education, and people will, the first institution of education is the family. The second is the school, and then society. So what are the resources available in families, even though they are poor? One of the most common resources every family has, particularly in the north, is the radio. And this was implemented and this was demonstrated during COVID, where they decided to put lessons on radio programs from I1, maths, 8 to 4, 8 to 5, from 8 to 9, from I2, English, 10 to 1, and then encourage the parents to make sure their children listen to it. I mean, I grew up at a time where it was normal for you to listen to a program on radios because that's where you will learn some things. I mean, if you wanted to do Yoruba, then that you listen to radio while on Saturday because that's when they become more and all of these things. So radio becomes available, is affordable, is also fungible in the sense that there can be a radio in one room and a radio in another room. So that's one option we have. Also, doing social institutions because like my co-guest talked about all those institutions had created some solutions there. So people will still like to go to mosque, people will still like to go to church. Market will still be there. The women that have children that are going to the market and follow their parents to the market. So those social institutions should start to come up to look for solutions to intervene that how those doesn't become very popular. But also, let me also mention this. For the other states that are currently safe and schools are not being shut down, it's now time for every state to have a backup plan for the schools. Because these schools were shut down because of maybe they had credible information from attacks. and those schools have been shut down, then most likely these same people will likely have alternative backup plans. These people that are planning to attack schools. So every state right now should have a plan to protect schools, and that's the first thing, because this backup should not even have arisen if we had done the right thing, like we have said. But now that we're in this situation, each school, there must be enough protection. I think it's wise for us at this point for us to start to think about additional security for school. And by any school, I mean any school. Because there's a sense in which when you live in some part of Nigeria, you think you are protected. You remember we had a kidnapping there. Yes. So it's not happening. There have been kidnapping there. There have been attacks of churches, in the Kwara State. There have been attacks of churches in the state. So even those who feel they're in an El Dorado in the southwest, they have been doing plans there. So all
right, Yemi, I have to interject so I can bring Yemi back in. I'm curious as to your thoughts. My colleague in Kogi says they're not sure that they're coming back this December. I mean, students in Plateau, Chizoba says there's a likelihood it will not impact. I mean, we heard the principal there saying it is likely not to impact the 2025-2026 academic session. But do we have any timeline? Are you concerned that this might stretch on indefinitely, especially looking at the pace and the response from the government on security?
Certainly, and that's what you have. That's what you will have because of that. Now, let's not forget, the federal government can only shut down schools that it owns because education is it's on the concurrent list. So states have oversight just as well as federal government, depending. Federal government owns schools and then federal universities as well. So one, the fact that there is no seeming coordination between the federal level and the state government is also concerning. I mean, over the last few days, and I'm sure you can attest to that, there were three different press statements from the Ministry of Education. They wrote one, then countered it because the date was wrong and they had edited the schools that were going to be closed. Then they issued another one saying the one they issued before was not really true, or the rumor that schools were being closed. I mean, just a lot of nonsense. Then there's no central place now that you can even find out who has closed schools. So we know Plateau has closed, we know Katsina has closed, we know Niger has closed. What does that mean? What does that look like? Shortlist of individual stations going to meet individual commissioners to get a sense of, okay, what are you doing? What are your plans? How are you responding? So the lack of a national coordination around education for Nigerian children is the same failure of leadership that we've seen from the president, that we're seeing in the Minister of Education. And I say that with fully, because there's nothing stopping him, even though state governments have oversight over the schools that they own. Nothing stops him from pulling them into a room and let's have a conversation. How do we respond to this? What do we do? How do we talk to the Nigerian people? What are we communicating? So is it going to affect students? Yes. I like what the Plateau Commissioner said. She was very clear. They were going to 1 week of revision and then 1 week of exams. That means the poor students have to remember what they learned in the new year because they won't be able to take the exams, hopefully, if they come back into the new year. Or, whatever that might look like. One of your reports said continuous assessment might be the way they get their grades, even if they don't sit for an exam. So yes, there will be consequences. I mean, long story short. And I think we, as parents, I saw footage of some of the parents talking there as well, talking about state police. So you see the multiple effects of this lack of this terrorism problem and a lack of leadership, because it affects so many things. And so in different pockets, parents, commissioners, communities, people should organize and start putting pressure on the people that have been elected to serve. And I'm talking senators, I'm talking House of Rep members, I'm talking State House of Assembly members. Until those people begin to feel pressure, then it's almost as if they're in a different Nigeria, because I haven't heard any of them speak.
Yeah.
None.
I sincerely wish we had more time. The news is always so brief. Thank you so much for speaking with us and sharing your thoughts. Coming up tonight, as race for 2027 intensifies, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar officially joins African Democratic Congress. We'll bring you that story and more after the break. Governors of Nigeria's southwest region met in Ibadan on Monday to discuss measures to strengthen security and regional development. The Southwest Governors Forum, comprising the governors of Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, Osun, Ekiti, and Ondo states, praised President Bola Tinubu for ongoing economic reforms and recent rescue efforts in Kwara and Niger states following multiple kidnapping incidents. The forum announced the creation of a Southwest Security Fund and a real-time intelligence sharing platform linking all 6 states. They also called for enhanced forest surveillance and urged the federal government to deploy forest guards to curb criminal hideouts. To diplomatic matters now, the United Kingdom has rejected the federal government's request to transfer Ike Ekweremadu, the former Deputy Senate President, to serve the remainder of his prison term in Nigeria. Ekweremadu is currently serving a prison sentence in the UK for organ trafficking. He was convicted in March 2023 and sentenced to 9 years and 8 months for conspiring to exploit a young man's kidney. Earlier in November, President Bola Tinubu sent a high-level delegation comprising the Ministers of Foreign Affairs and Justice to London to discuss Ekweremadu's case and explore the possibility of him serving the remainder of his prison term in Nigeria. Politics. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has formally registered as a member of the African Democratic Congress, ADC, in Adamawa State, marking a significant shift in Nigeria's opposition landscape ahead of the 2027 general elections. The registration took place on Monday, days after Atiku told ADC supporters and stakeholders in the state that he was committing fully to the party. The development was confirmed by his aide. Videos and photos from the event captured the former vice president's convoy arriving to a crowd of excited supporters who sang, beat drums, and waved placards bearing his name. And outside Nigeria, European and African leaders gathered in Angola on Monday as momentum builds to strengthen ties between the two continents. In Luanda, the Angolan capital, heads of state and government officials arrived throughout the day for the 7th EU-African Union Summit. Among them, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa and Democratic Republic of Congo President Felix Tshisekedi, both greeted by host President Joao Lourenço. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has described the declaration from this weekend's Group of 20 summit as a boost for multilateral cooperation despite the absence of U.S. President Donald Trump. Ramaphosa, who hosted the Johannesburg summit, pushed through the declaration addressing challenges like the climate crisis despite objections from the United States, which boycotted the event. Addressing the closing ceremony, Ramaphosa said the declaration showed that goals shared by world leaders outweighed their differences. U.S. President Donald Trump boycotted the summit on the grounds of allegations that the host country's black majority government persecutes its white minority. My colleague Israeli Ferobo is in Johannesburg and he joins us now for further updates. The G20 summit is over, but one thing continues to resound, that world leaders made some sort of progress despite the absence of the U.S. How much progress was it?
Good evening to you. Indeed, there was a lot of progress that has been made this weekend in Johannesburg. I'm back in Lagos. I came a few hours ago, and indeed, the progress that has been made by world leaders at the G20 summit has been enormous, something that has never happened before at the summit, having a declaration being the first order of business on the first day of the summit, indeed by the leaders. There was an overwhelming consensus for the South African G20 presidency to go ahead and adopt the declaration, which is what happened on the very first day of the summit. The leaders went ahead to to echo the sentiment of all the world leaders who were present at Nazareth, that multilateralism and bilateral relations and better cooperation by leaders of the world to help proper diplomacy and indeed for developing countries. These were issues that came up at the summit on day one and indeed on day two as well, to show that yes, Africa's voice is indeed represented, and for countries who are developing to really have a voice, so they are also getting a better deal at the table.
How would you describe Africa's voice at the summit, from advocacy for debt relief to overall development?
Can you say that again?
I said, how would you describe Africa's voice at the summit, from advocacy for debt relief to overall development? Indeed.
It was a sentiment that President Cyril Ramaphosa echoed at the summit. He did say that Africa needs a stronger voice when it comes to issues of debt relief. And analysts who are also present at the summit had this to say about countries with huge amounts of debt. They have to come together and come a strong voice to have a better deal when they are going ahead to have deals just like this, so that they can have a better deal when negotiated. I spoke to the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, and he did say that yes, there is a committee here in Africa, to handle issues of debt relief for Africans, but that committee is not working fast enough for African countries to have a better deal, and which is something that must be addressed going forward after this G20 summit at Nazareth this weekend. But indeed, I would say it's a big win for Africa. Go ahead to see just how much the people, the world leaders gathered together to ensure that this African Presidency Summit on the African continent that was hosted by South Africa is indeed successful, despite all the tensions from the US President, from the White House, saying that they will not attend this summit. I'm also going to have to say whatever declarations that they bring forward from the summit will be challenged, will be opposed. Indeed, the leaders came together to support the South African president and ensure that yesterday they go ahead to have an adoption of some sort of cooperation, and a G20 outcome document was adopted on the last day, and this shows just how much support that they gave to the South African presidency at the G20 summit this weekend. So that's indeed a big win for South presidency and for Africa as a whole.
Israel, thank you for the coverage. We appreciate it. Tonight returns with business, sports and entertainment news. Do stay with us.
This segment is brought to you by MoneyPoint.
The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, reported a record profit after tax of 5.4 trillion naira for the 2024 financial year, a 64% increase from 3.3 trillion naira in 2023. Revenue surged 88% to 45.1 trillion naira, driven by higher production, cost-cutting, and operational efficiency. Earnings per share rose 64% to 27.07 naira. CEO Bayo Ojulari highlighted the company's transformation and announced a strategic plan targeting crude oil output of 3 million barrels per day and natural gas production of 12 billion standard cubic feet by 2030. NNPCL aims to attract $60 billion in investment across the value chain by decade end. The Nigerian government launched the National Council on Livestock Development to spearhead reforms that attract billions in investment across the livestock sector. Minister Idi Mokhtar Maiha aims to grow the industry from $32 billion to $74 billion within 5 years under the National Livestock Growth Acceleration Strategy. Key achievements include new pasture species, expanded vaccine production, and modernizing grazing reserves to reduce farmer-herder conflicts. Legislative bodies pledged support with bills to enhance value chains, land use and ranching reforms. Market Report is next after this break. Stay with us. The Nigerian exchange closed the session on a mildly negative note, reflecting a cautious trading environment as investors reassessed market positioning across major sectors. The all-share index, ASI, edged down by 0.08% to close at 143,614.61 points, signaling a marginal pullback after recent sessions of mixed momentum. Despite the subdued performance, the overall market capitalization remained strong at 91.34 trillion naira, underscoring sustained investor confidence in the broader market structure. Now let's move over to the sectors. Sectoral performance was mixed. Banking minus 0.27% and insurance minus 0.79% declined on mild selling pressure, while consumer goods minus 0.02% also edged lower. The oil and gas and industrial goods indices were unchanged, reflecting muted activity in both sectors. And that does it for business news tonight. Sports is next.
This segment is brought to you by MoneyPoint.
And in sport tonight, Nigeria's senior men's basketball team, D Tigers, they have landed in Tunisia as preparation intensify ahead of the opening window of the Qatar 2027 FIBA World Cup qualifiers. Now, ahead of their departure, head coach Abdurrahman Mohammed, he confirmed his final 12-player roster for the competition, with a squad that balances seasoned professionals with rising stars from the Nigerian League. Handling the squad is veteran guard and 2015 AfroBasket champion Stanley Okoye, the most experienced player in the team. 3 players from the Nigerian Basketball Premier League also made the final list. 2 of them, Gabara Jikempa and also Chris Obekpa, were instrumental in Lagos Legends' recent championship triumph, while Paul Dibal of Boko City Chiefs earned his call-up following a breakout season. The Handball Premier League 2025 enters its decisive second phase on Tuesday in Lagos, with teams across the men's and women's division bracing for a defining fixture that could reshape the title race. The opening 3 match days will be played at the Royal Park Sports Centre in Yaba, before the competition shifts to Indoor Sport Hall of the National Institute of Sports at the National Stadium in Surulere for the remainder of the phase. In the men's division, league leaders Safety Shooters, they open against Osun United, with Rena Strikers, who hit third, begin their hunt for the top spot with a tricky tie against Benue Buffaloes. Now, the women's fixture are equally compelling as Ekiti Queens face the Fender Babes in the opening tie of the category, while defending champion Safety Babes, they begin their chase for a historic 5th consecutive league crown with a top duel against Rivers Queens. Kano Pillars have ended their 7-match winless streak with a 2-1 win over Ikorodu City in a match played at the Mohammed Diko Stadium in Katsina. Now, ageless midfielder Rabiu Ali opened the scoring as early as the 2nd minute, his 3rd goal for the season, before forward Olakunle Akala, he doubled the lead. Ikorodu City winger Joseph Arumala, he scored his 4th goal of the season on the stroke of halftime to pull one back for the visitors. Pillars held on throughout the second half to earn 3 valuable points, although they remain bottom of the table. In Ilari, we had Katsina United edging out Aimba 3-2 in an exciting 5-goal thriller. Striker Uche Collins, he scored a brace for United after Jamilu Yusuf had opened the scoring in the first half. Aimba struck back twice through Stanley Dingba and Issa Mohammed to make it just that loss for the day. The Nigerian Women Football Secretariat has formally confirmed the relegation of Kasmag Ladies from the 2025-2026 NWFL Premiership after club failed to meet essential licensing and registration requirements for the new season. Now, in a statement by the media director, Samuel Amadu, on Monday, the decision follows earlier issued warnings to 3 Premiership clubs, including Kasmog Ladies, to comply with all registration and licensing obligations. But the Abeokuta-based outfit, they failed to meet the stipulated deadline despite the reminders. Now, while confirming development, NWFL Chief Operating Officer Modupe Shabi revealed that the Secretariat had begun adjusting competition logistics to reflect the revised structure. With the Ogun State-based club now officially relegated, the Premiership season will proceed with 19 teams in total. And that's it in the world of sport. I am Onyinyechi Obaru. Entertainment news is up next with Adele.
Like Oni said, Adele is here with all the entertainment.
As always, bringing all the biggest conversations that happened today. Well, let's jump right into it. Now, the Actors Guild of Nigeria has lifted the suspension on actress Shirley Igwe following a review on the disciplinary action taken against her for alleged violent conduct on a Lagos movie set on July 19th, 2025. In a statement signed by the agent president, Dr. Emeka Rollas, the Guild said the National Executive Council reinstated Igwe after a comprehensive evaluation of the case in line with its constitutional provisions on fair hearing and member rehabilitation. Igwe has now been cleared to resume all filming and Guild-related activities effective, which was on October 19, 2025. And the NEC urged her to maintain emotional composure, uphold professional ethics, and contribute positively to the Guild's growth and integrity. Well, we'd say congratulations to that as well. And moving on overseas, as Jamaican reggae and soul legend Jimmy Cliff, born James Chambers, has died at the age of 81. His family announced his passing on Monday with his wife, Latifah Chambers, revealing he died after a seizure followed by pneumonia. She thanked fans and colleagues for their unwavering support, thoughtful throughout his career, by the way. And Jimmy Cliff, who was known worldwide for classics like Many Rivers to Cross, Reggae Night, and The Harder They Come, which helped introduce reggae to global audiences, born in 1944. Felicity, I see you're already you're already in the groove of,
I can see clearly now the rain is gone. Come on, music that you hear and you feel it, you can imagine it, you can live off your imagination. That was the kind of music he gave to us,
that was
honestly.
The kind of music
May he so rest in peace. I couldn't wait to let you finish because I could just remember all the beautiful, if I close my eyes and think about I can see clearly. I can remember the first day I heard that song. I can remember where I was. I can remember what I was doing.
That's what music does to the soul.
Oh, yes.
Impact. Well, that's all we have on entertainment tonight, by the way.
And that's all the news we have for you tonight. But before we go, here's a quick reminder of our top stories. Amnesty International has warned mass kidnappings in schools may stunt academic progress as U.S. partners Nigeria on intelligence sharing. The UK government has rejected Nigeria's government's request to transfer Ike Ekweremadu to serve remainder of his prison term in the country. 7th EU-AU summit opens in Luanda as European and African leaders meet amid mounting threats to regional stability. We would appreciate your witness report or feedback on our programming. Use the number showing now on your screen. You can follow us on all social media platforms to stay updated and share information as well at News Central TV. You can watch live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, StarTimes channel 274, Avo TV, and on YouTube.